morning. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts. Welcome back to the Mayor's Table. My guest this morning is Police Chief Steve Hebbe. Steve, welcome back. This is, I think, the second time you've been a guest on the Mayor's Table.
Yes, sir.
And probably each time we talked about crime.
Shockingly, yes.
Well, let's talk about crime again.
Okay.
This time a little bit more generally. I'm interested, and I think our viewers would be interested in what's happening in Farmington in the context of criminal activity. Are we seeing trends in particular areas of crime? So why don't you just take it from there and tell us a little bit about what's happening.
Certainly one of the biggest crimes that Farmington has is auto burglaries. And we've put out a bunch of information in the both last year and again this year as those started to spike in the spring. That crime usually continues on pretty healthy in the summer months. Some of it may be the kids out, some of it may just be more people out and about. But auto burglaries, one easy way of deterring those is by keeping your vehicle locked. Our research has showed up to 80% of auto burglaries occur to vehicles that are left unlocked. So don't leave valuable items in them and keep your car locked up, and generally you're going to be pretty safe. In particular, don't leave weapons in cars. Those are easily found. They will go through a neighborhood just trying doors, find open doors, and they're looking for weapons and cash and things that are easily taken. So that's one big one. And then another one in the summer months is more traffic. We have lots more traffic that causes more collisions, especially with all the construction we have around town. We really need folks to drive safely.
Recently there have been a number of newspaper articles and media coverage about the auto burglaries. Have you seen that level of activity diminish in any way in the last week or so since that coverage? Or have you made any arrests with respect to those activities?
You know, we have made a number of arrests, and we're actually reasonably successful for a crime that occurs in the middle of the night, oftentimes without witnesses. We've been reasonably successful in getting into a number of the small rings that seem to go about. That has curtailed it some, but it's still a significant problem. Probably the biggest day-to-day problem that we see in Farmington is the threat of auto burgs.
And you mentioned traffic, increased traffic during these summer months. I assume that there might also be a corollary increase in DUIs or DWIs. Are you experiencing that as well?
Yes, sir. And we're active. We have extra officers out through grants that do nothing but target DUI drivers. But as we've seen, we've had some pretty spectacular accidents with tragic consequences even during daylight hours. So DUI is a constant issue for us here in the Four Corners area, and we really encourage you to use the RAD program and report any aggressive or dangerous driver and call 911, and we scramble officers. We take the problem of dangerous driving seriously, and we will make arrests.
What about violent crime? Are we seeing any kind of escalation in those numbers?
You know, we've seen more shots fired calls this year than last. Not to epidemic proportions, but it's been something that's we're chasing more of. We can't really account for why we're seeing more of it this year than last. But we're not seeing a lot more violent crimes, just more of the shots fired calls than we saw last year. And
maybe we ought to talk a little bit more globally and more generally. The average citizen in Farmington, what do you think they're seeing with respect to criminal activity in Farmington? I can look at it from my personal perspective, and I can say I feel very safe. I'm not connected to much criminal activity in any way, seeing it or being victimized by it, and I feel very safe in our community. Somebody else might have a different perspective, but are you able to tell from your perspective, how comfortable do citizens in Farmington feel about the level of criminal activity in the community?
I think the auto burgs hits the average citizen, unlike some other crimes where generally the actors are already in an area doing something like drugs that then attracts other trouble. But auto burgs is one that the average citizen feels. Another one that is a constant issue for us here in Farmington is the inebriates. And that goes to the core of how safe do people feel or not feel. So we're very active on a bike patrol. We have a new electric motorcycle that's very quiet. You'll see it some on the Riverwalk. So we deploy our officers pretty regularly on the Riverwalk. I'm down there some. So if you see me, give me a wave. We're out at Farmington Lake. There's alcohol issues there. It's a new area, so we're kind of struggling to get everybody to see the rules. Dirt bikes, ATVs out there, any of that stuff, we intervene on that. We're fixing the road as a city into Farmington Lake, so that'll make it a safer venture back in there. But those are probably the things that the average citizen sees, the alcohol and around Farmington Lake, and maybe the inebriates in some parts of town.
You've said many times that we have a larger police force than would be typical for a city with a population of 45,000 people, and that's because we're a retail hub for a population of upwards of 250,000 people, maybe even 300,000 people.
Yes.
So we have a lot of people coming into our community on weekends in particular to do their shopping and to seek their entertainment, and that tends to create more traffic, so we have more accidents. We probably have more DUIs, DWIs as a result of that increased flow of people into our community. And I assume that we see other crime demographics rise as well. Are you able to determine where the perpetrators come from? Do we have a lot of crime being caused by people who don't live in the city limits of Farmington?
That's a good question. I would tell you, actually, one of the things that we're getting here, we actually go live with it next week, is a new record management system that's being financed through the Joint Dispatch Center for all the law enforcement agencies in the Four Corners area. And we think that this new system will allow us to get more of that real-time data faster. We struggle with that. Our current record management system is about 20 years old, the one that we're replacing. So those are the kind of things I think we'll get better real-time data as we go along. My sense of it, though, is that we have a lot of crime that occurs, but it doesn't feel like it comes really from the outside. I think we have a lot of citizens here, and that we get into crime. Now, whether they're here for a couple of weeks and actually live somewhere else in the Four Corners area, I don't think I have that information. But I don't feel a big spike except in traffic, really, on weekends. Seems to be a bigger one for us.
Steve, let's close this segment by maybe giving some information to our viewers about what they should do in the event that they're seeing something suspicious and maybe even are seeing a criminal activity taking place. What is your advice to them in terms of getting involved or reporting, or both of those things, or neither of those things?
That's the 911 call is the biggest thing for us. So often people are afraid that they're going to be bothering us, or that they're wrong. They're not really seeing what they think they're seeing. And if you are seeing something, let us go and check it out. It doesn't cost us anything to do that. We have officers on duty. That's what we want to do. We want to hear from you when you're seeing things in the community that are suspicious. The worst thing is that you maybe see something that would have protected somebody or protected property, and you didn't make the call and you drove on, and then something did happen. So we always encourage citizens to give us a holler. We want to go out and figure out what's going on. That's what we're here for.
Steve, thanks for being here this morning. We appreciate what you and the officers do to make Farmington a better place in which to live, work, and play, and to make it a safer place. We'll do this periodically, so we'll look forward to having you back on another segment of the Mayor's Table.
Thank you, sir.
And to each of you out there who's viewing this segment, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Monday.